Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the weekly Daily podcast. We're now well into September, getting close to, I guess it's not even officially fall yet. We've got a couple more days. It's like the 17th. It's Monday. It's been a crazy week, if I'm being honest. Very busy, which is good, but time is flying by. Summer is 4 days from being officially over, although it feels quite fallish already. Still some decently hot days in the 70s and 80s, but you can just feel it, you know? You just feel it physically and mentally. I've been mentally adjusting to the new ish season for the last couple weeks after going to Montana. It was cooler there, obviously being further north, felt more like fall. And then coming back here, there's been some cooler days, especially in the evenings, in the mornings. And yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of mentally getting through that. I've noticed one thing. I feel like I have. I know a lot of people say they have seasonal depression, and I I kind of have that. I think it's more so, and this is probably what a lot of people have when they say seasonal depression. I think it's more so like my brain takes a minute to adjust to change. Uh, Probably for a lot of things, but when it comes to seasons especially. And it's more so for fall. So I guess it's kind of maybe seasonal depression, but it usually takes me like 2 weeks for my brain to kind of just adjust to like, okay, we're going from my favorite seasons, which is spring and summer, kind of warm, more light, just, able to get outside and soak in some sun, some vitamin D. And yeah, so the last couple weeks, I feel like my brain's been adjusting. I feel like I'm kind of on the tail end of that adjustment, although it kind of goes in phases because obviously it's still warm. It's still warm. There's been some cooler days, but here in the next month or so, we'll probably have a random day that's like 30 degrees, and that'll be like another shock to the system to kind of start that brain, you know. It's just like, yeah, fall. I don't like pumpkin spice. I'm not a fan. I'm not a big fan. I don't care about pumpkins, if I'm being honest. People love to hype up pumpkins and the pumpkin flavor and put them on your porch, carve a jack-o'-lantern. I'm not 6 years old anymore, okay? I don't like it being cold. I'm not carving a pumpkin. I'm not going trick-or-treating, okay? That's inappropriate. Sue me, okay? I'm not a fan of fall. I don't go to Starbucks, okay? Do you know how much I saw a video? This wasn't Starbucks, but I saw a video a couple days ago that was talking about Dunkin' Donuts, like some sort of frappuccino latte. Those are different things, but you know what I'm talking about. Just one of those fancy sugary drinks. And the guy was like talking about how it had 190 grams of sugar in it. Now look, I don't want to say Dunkin' Donuts is Starbucks. It's not, but it's basically the same thing. And you know what? If you're from Boston or if you have if you're like real into one or the other and you're upset, again, sue me. It's the same thing. They sell coffee and it's fine, okay? The beans are fine. I'll drink it if I'm in a pinch. Just black coffee. I'm not getting the sugar content though. I'm sure the pumpkin spice at Starbucks, whatever it is, probably doesn't have 190, but the amount of sugars in it. I mean, the amount of people who go there every day. You could eat the healthiest diet ever, and if you just got one of those drinks every day to start your morning off, you have diabetes immediately. You do that for the month. For a month, diabetes. You got to be careful, There's a lot of hidden sugar out there. And I don't even know, I don't know where I'm going. I really tangented? Is that a verb? Can I use it? To tangent? I tangented. Wow, that came out awkward. Anyways, we're going to get this thing back on the rails. Not a big fan of fall. We're kind of going into the fall season, which is a bit of a bummer. But once my brain gets adjusted to it, it'll be good. The cooler season, the cooler it is outside, and the shorter the days are as far as light goes, the better comedy is. Honestly, people come out more. So we're getting more into that comedy season, which is good. I've been busy, like I said. I've been busy this last week. It's been a very fun week of hosting. Did a lot of hosting. I hosted 5 times in the last 4 days, which is great. Hosting is something that a lot of people don't like. I mean, some people like it as well. I want to get better at it. I try to embrace it. I feel like I've definitely gotten a lot better, and I'm comfortable with myself as a host. I've got plenty of room to grow and learn and get better. And I look forward to that. But at the end of the day, I think same sentiment that a lot of people have is you want to grow in comedy to where you get to be like headlining or just doing like the spots where you're just ripping. But hosting, you get paid in some circumstances more to host. It's like more responsibility. And so that's good to get a little bit more pay. And also, it's a different thing. It's a lot of similarities, but it's also different too, where it's like a very selfless job. I kind of look at it as when I'm hosting, as much as all of us are doing these, who are doing comedy, it's like a very selfish thing. You're like, look at me. I want you to laugh at me. Look at my mouth moving. And when I say some certain specific words, you laugh. I don't know what accent that was. I don't know why I did that, but I was trying to enunciate, and you guys get the point. But when you're hosting, it's and everybody looks at it differently, but I look at it from more of a professional standpoint, where it's like my job is to kind of establish what's happening, aka, we're about to do a comedy show. Here's kind of the basic rules if you're not familiar. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people, there's a lot of comedy fans, but much more common are people who probably have never gone to a comedy show before or aren't really 100% familiar with like what a comedy show entails, which is pretty basic. But what it entails is don't heckle, please laugh, have a good time, but don't heckle. That's like the most important thing, which stinks to have to say up front because then people view you as like more of a rule person. You're like not lecturing, but kind of lecturing the crowd like, hey, here's the rules. They look at you more like the rule person versus a comedian. I can't tell you how many times people come up afterwards and they're like, do you do comedy too? Which that's the worst you can get. Because usually that's when you had a bad host set or the crowd was like extra tight and not many people were laughing. You're like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll try comedy one day. I was just up there for like 15 minutes just saying words, apparently, not jokes. But it can be, that's why it's different. You're up there and it's very important to me, and kind of the strategy I have is, look, this isn't about me. I'm hosting. My job as the host is to be professional, to set up, establish, everybody is aware of what's going on. Don't heckle. Bathrooms are there. Grab drinks there. Get them to clap a handful of times. And then obviously, a big part of it too is like bringing trying to be in the moment, bringing an energy to the crowd. And then before bringing the first comic up or the next comic, building momentum, getting them to clap, getting them to laugh. So okay, sorry, my computer. I'm uploading a video at the moment, and my computer keeps going to sleep every 5 minutes, so I might be reaching over there. Anyways, that is my thought process when it comes to hosting. A lot of people have different mindsets. Mine is much more on like, I feel a lot more pressure and obligation to be professional to look at it in a different point of view than I would a regular set and just set the show up for the other comedians to be successful and have them be high. Honestly, I'm saying this a little bit hyperbolically, but hyperbolic, hyperbolically, hyper. I'm I'm being a little hyperbolic. I don't even know what that word means. I know what it means. It's one of those, where you're like, I know what it means, but if someone was like, tell me the definition, it's like, I don't know. Next question. Next topic. Let's not I'm being a little bit over the top, I think is what it means. For all the children out there who don't know vocabulary words like myself. But I kind of want, as a host, I kind of just want to be not unforgettable or forgettable. I kind of want to be, I don't want people to be thinking of me good or bad. You don't want to be a bad host to where people finish the show and go, golly, that first guy stunk. I want people to where I do my job, I set it up, I bring a little energy in the room, get some laughs before bringing the person on, kind of establish the rules, and then people in the show, and they're not talking about it. They're talking about the feature headliner, the people on the show. They go, that was a great show. I don't need to be remembered. Again, it's a very different mindset. When I'm just doing a set, I think most comedians, it's a very selfish thing. You're like, I want to rip. I want people to know my name. As a host, I look at it very differently. So I did a lot of that this week. Got a lot of good reps in, which was fun. I feel a lot more comfortable with some of the jokes that I've been doing leading into my set, which I think work twofold for hosting and for a regular set. I've just got some personal stuff that I'm starting out with, just about just a self-deprecating, like how I used to be very small, and a couple of jokes on that end, and it works well to establish a little bit, about who I am as a person in a self-deprecating way, and also as a host, it's a joke where I can kind of, I'm able to get into the joke more conversationally, which as a host, being in the moment and kind of like going from here's the rules to here's the jokes, it's good to have kind of a conversational segue into if you're watching the pod, I'm doing hand motions as if I'm painting a picture, but I'm realizing that I'm not. I'm just doing left, right, left, right. But that's it feels good to have a starting joke or kind of starting chunk that I feel a lot more comfortable with for both host sets and regular sets. Over the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to get better at having a joke or the first, it's good to have a first joke that kind of tells the crowd who you are, but also is you're getting to the laughs quickly. And for the longest time, I went through some opening jokes where it was one or the other. It was either got to the laugh quickly, but it wasn't really about me, or it was about me and established a little bit, to the crowd who I was, but it wasn't as quick to the punch. So it feels good to have those two. And yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Pumpkin spice, baby. I will say this. I've talked about it a lot in the past, my diet, and I've been sticking with the diet, 100% clean. They call me Clean Ben because of my diet, and I don't curse that much on video. I've never said a bad word, Mom, but I have noticed that going into sounds like a drone's outside. Maybe that's just a bird. I don't know. I have noticed going into not just this fall season, but fall seasons in general, I felt a lot more lethargic and tired, and I think that's part of when my brain is mentally trying to transition to the new season. That's just kind of a side effect of it that I've noticed throughout my life. You just kind of, as your brain's readjusting, my body kind of is readjusting as well, being a little more lethargic. It has been busy with comedy and work and everything, trying to balance everything. So it's not a surprise to be a little tired, but also I feel like the last week or two, I haven't had quite the pep in my step. Um, so especially when it comes to hosting and bringing energy, it can be a little tougher to get into that performance headspace and be like, I got to bring it. But also, what I'll say is, I'm very glad that I'm down this health, diet, clean eating journey, because even being a little more lethargic, the changing the seasons, blah, 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 whatever it is, the bottom, the floor level of like kind of where I am mentally or physically is much higher. I don't know if that made sense, but if I'm not eating healthy, if I'm all out of whack, then when I'm going through periods that are kind of worse than others, kind of the downward portions of my mental and physical health, it's like very low. It's like, oh no, I'm feeling very anxious, very uncomfortable, very tired. Whereas over the last couple of weeks, I've been tired, more tired than usual, but still fine. Like it's like I would like a little more pep in my step, but I'm still fully capable of dealing with this, and that's been cool because ultimately I've talked about it before. That's kind of one of the main not one of the main reasons. I mean, I felt poor. I felt horrible, so I had to make changes. But long term, the thought process of making these changes with my diet and lifestyle is very much the question of like, do I want to tap into my full potential? Not just on stage, but just in life. Do I want to be as mentally clear and feeling as well mentally and physically and having energy and being able to just live life to the fullest? You know, I saw a John Mayer interview, a clip. You guys maybe have seen it. It's probably been out there quite a bit, but he was getting interviewed by somebody and he was talking about, if you're not familiar, John Mayer, guitarist, famous guitar songwriter. But he was getting interviewed, and I guess he's sober now. And the question was basically like why he went sober, I think. And he was talking about like one of the last nights, or it might have been the last night he drank, and how embarrassed he was. I guess it was he drank like a lot, too much. I think it was at Drake's birthday party or something. Anyways, he drank a bunch, woke up feeling kind of shame, regret, blah, blah, blah. And he said he asked himself this question. He said, John, what potential of yourself do you want to take advantage of? Like, how much do you want to tap in to being the best you can be? And he told himself, he goes, there's no wrong answers. And he goes, I thought about that for like 5 seconds, and it was very clear. He goes, 100%. I want to tap into 100% of my abilities and my potential. And ever since then, like he's been touring with Dead and Company. I mean, he's been doing a bunch of stuff, and I related a lot to that when I saw that. I was like, I feel the same. Like, I want 100%. I want to tap in. I want to be the best human being that I can be. Again, on and off stage. Obviously, with this podcast and a lot of stuff I talk about, it's very relevant to comedy, but it just goes hand in hand with life in general. The more clear-headed and energy and positive vibes I have, obviously that's going to translate to being more comfortable and in the moment on stage. But I mean, I'm spending way more time off stage, and so just enjoying life more, being more present, being able to connect and communicate and enjoy time with friends, family, and be as happy as I can be. And then, all that, you clear head, it just all goes hand in hand with comedy, with life, with everything. So, yeah, it's been good. I haven't drank in like 3 months. I'm sure I'll drink again. I've never been a huge drinker. But I'm not 3 months sober and being like, I had a problem, so I can't drink anymore. But also, alcohol affects your immune system and it's sugar and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that isn't super healthy uh, as far as just trying to be the best you can be. So maybe in the future, have a little bit here and there, but it's nice being sober and being as healthy as possible. And also, I've always tried to embrace being sober on stage, which is, I want to feel the feelings. If they're good, that's great. You're feeling a stage high without any drugs or alcohol. But also, if it's a low, you gotta figure out how to deal. It's very much the same. I look at as life and problems and traumas and stress. It's like you can mask those things by abusing drugs or alcohol, or you can stay in a sober mind and be like, man, this thing stinks, or like I've got to think through and figure out how to solve this problem. And it's kind of the same on stage. Like if you bomb, if you die on stage, and it's not if, it's when, and it's not once, it's going to happen all the time. If you keep, if you just pretend that didn't happen by masking it with drugs and alcohol, and then just masking the feeling of that while you're on stage, if you're like doing drugs or alcohol before going on stage, then it's easy to just like kind of push it out of your mind and be like, oh, I mean, it wasn't that great, but it didn't feel that bad because I was really drunk and I was having a good time. But when you're sober and you eat it, you're like, I'm feeling the feelings. I'm here. Okay? There's no drugs or alcohol to pretend to myself that this is going well. Which, to dig a little bit deeper, there's also people who are comedians who are sober that will bomb and they will come off and be like, crushed it. They loved me. Which is also a very interesting side of comedy and the psychology of comedy, how people like somehow in their brain make up that like they'll not get hardly any laughs at all, and in their brain they're like, I crushed. Which doesn't make sense, but that's a conversation for another day. It makes sense if you're just starting out and you're starting out at 0 laughs and then you start getting some laughs. Like, when you start out, you stink. So like getting a little bit goes a lot further in your brain. But the more you do it, you're surrounded by other people doing it, and you're seeing and hearing the crowd's reaction to their jokes. And there's a lot of people who are better than you, especially when you start. Almost everybody is better than you. At least that was the case for me. And if you don't allow your brain to like hear that and take the actual input from the crowd for your jokes versus then I don't know how you grow. It's the same as in life. In order to grow as a person, you kind of have to like see yourself and but like you're surrounded by norms in life. And like I get it. Sometimes you might not understand if you're just looking at your own situation, but so much of growth in life is responding to the norms. Like a bad habit that I still have, and I recognize it, and I try to temper myself and try to limit it and be conscious of it when it's happening to try to lower the amount of times. But sometimes I'll keep talking. Like I'll just ramble and ramble and ramble and maybe not allow others to speak as much. And I try to be conscious of that. I know it's something that I do. I'm here talking to myself into a camera, rambling about pumpkin spice and God knows what. But when I'm in conversations with other groups of people, sometimes I'll go too far, and I need it. If I didn't see other people who did the same and did it worse to then alert me, go, wow, that's annoying. Try not to do that as much. Or obviously just talking to people who are like, yeah, so and so talks so much they didn't let anybody else talk. That's annoying. Then it's like, all right, here's a norm that's out in the world. I understand based on seeing other people do it, seeing other people's input. And then also, sometimes when you're doing it, when I'm doing it myself, you see other people maybe be like, okay, all right, Ben, you got your time. Okay. We're metaphorically giving you the light. Shut it down. And from that you kind of adjust. So it's interesting when people uh don't do that in life or don't do that in comedy. Like they don't take input from people around and they don't live and learn, like the old cliche saying, you got to live and you got to learn. But, what can you do? I haven't drank for like 3 months, been eating a lot of ground beef, vegetables, bought a brisket for the first time in a while, crock potted that thing. I'll tell you what, brisket is now going to be in the regular rotation, okay? Because it was delicious. It's got a lot of nice, healthy fat in it. Beef fat, cow fat. Easy, throw it in the crock pot. Easy to cook. Oh, just tender. Tender. Not the app, but the adjective. Or adverb. Adjective. Tenderly would be adverb for all you English majors out there. But I digress, guys. I'm going to start talking about this last week because it's been a fun one. A lot of good shows. Hosted all of them. Hosted all of the shows, which was super fun. So, I'll go back to, like I said, it's Monday, the 17th today, I think. And so yeah, going back to last Thursday, I hosted a Don't Tell comedy show at a cocktail bar. I guess with the whole don't tell thing, it's a hack joke. People say, dude, don't tell, don't tell. But I don't know that, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to like openly be saying areas. So I'll keep it vague. But it's at a cocktail bar. And in Denver, that's where I live. South Denver, rent's going up. And it was a kind of tight show. The crowd was a little tight, but I felt good about it was my first time hosting a Don't Tell show. And I felt good about my host set. At the end of the day, you're not gonna, as a host especially, you're not gonna like crush you're almost never gonna crush as a host. But again, I look at it differently. And it's like, if I feel comfortable, if I'm in the moment, if I get people to clap and I do my job and kind of stay in the moment and with good energy, then it depends. There's other factors in there, but that's a huge part of it for me. And I feel like I did that. I felt good about Thursday. So yeah, that was Thursday. That's a quick little thing for you on Thursday. I'm trying to think of like something worth talking about or explaining from that show. It was raining outside. That was about the most, there you go. There's some details for that show. That was Thursday, though. And then Friday, I got to host 2 shows at the Denver Comedy Lounge, which always enjoy doing the lounge. Lounge has a special place in my heart. Ben Kronberg, who runs the club there, awesome dude. Total sweetheart. Just cracks me up. He's a great guy. He's very funny. He's very nice. He's helping like build up the scene in Denver. He gives a lot of people opportunities. And I feel very grateful that anytime I get to perform there, I genuinely feel grateful because it's a very cool setup. He runs 5 shows a weekend, 2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and just puts a lot of people up. It's a very competitive scene here in Denver. I've definitely grown a lot, and I feel like I'm continuing to grow as a comic, as a performer, getting more comfortable. And just with performing, being on stage, and also just getting more comfortable with being like, yes, I'm writing jokes. I am funny. I know where I stand. I'm I'm not like I am the best, but I feel pretty comfortable with where I'm at right now. And with that said, there's so many comics in Denver, and there's a decent amount of clubs and spots. It's just very competitive, and it can be tough to get stage time at some of the top tier clubs and rooms. So again, just feel very grateful that Ben is a cool dude, giving opportunities to people in the scene. There at the Denver Comedy Lounge. But also, I mean, it's a very cool room. It's a very cool ambiance. Probably talked about it before, but it's like a 75 person room in the back of a sake sake bar, sake place. And people say this all the time, like after the shows, and when you're talking to people who come in, they're like, "Oh, I had no idea this place was back here." Like you walk in and it's the sake place, and then you go in the back and it's like this beautiful 75 person room. Like it's not necessarily a low ceiling, but it's not a high ceiling. It's just a regular ceiling, but they have like decorations, and it's like astroturf kind of thing. It's stuff that kind of hangs down to make it look like kind of like a foresty vibe, and then the behind you on stage they have like trees that they've cut to make like the backdrop, and just the whole vibe is awesome. It's very, very cool. So I got to host there twice on Friday for the 7 and 9 o'clock. There's a headliner in from New York, Kevin McCaffrey. Very funny, very nice guy. I was talking to him. He was talking about how he started in New York like 07, 08, basically around the time. He said his class of comics was like Mark Norman, Sam Morrell. I mean, he named off like just so many people that are killing it. So it was cool to hear people. He was like, yeah, Nate started, a couple years before me. So it sounded like he was kind of just buds and started with a lot of these people. He was very funny. He was very nice. I was very, it was my first time meeting him. And obviously hosting, you're bringing people up, you're saying their credits, you're saying their names. And for some reason, my brain, because his name's Kevin McCaffrey, and I had to like tell myself, don't say Kevin McCarthy, which is Kevin McCarthy? I think he's a government guy. Is he like the Republican majority leader? The whip? I think he is, but I don't understand any of that. Like I'm the whip majority, okay? And you're like, what's that mean? And it's like, don't know. I don't think I don't think you vote for that. I think you just vote for senator or House of Representative. I don't think there's any whip subcategory. Anyways, I didn't want to say Kevin McCarthy. Fortunately, I didn't. Kevin McCaffrey. Shows were good. 7 o'clock was a little tight. 9 o'clock was very fun. It was a very good room. I felt good again. Hosting, kind of trying to bring the energy up, just being in the moment again. A lot to improve on, a lot to get better on, but I feel a lot more comfortable with just getting down. The more you do it, obviously, whether it's hosting or comedy or anything in life, the more reps you get, the better you get at stuff. But a big part of hosting is you're establishing the rules and you're saying people's credits and you're talking about, give it up for the wait staff, and like if there's an announcement like, hey, last call is coming. There's a lot of stuff that you're having to say. And it's funny because like I've done comedy over 1,000 times. Like I've got a lot of reps, as people do when you do comedy for a while. So I'm, you get comfortable on stage and you get very comfortable in that setting, which you think would translate directly to hosting, which it does some, but also my mind, I think a comedian's mind is very much trained to basically be like, am I getting laughs? If I am, I'm good. I can feel more loose and more comfortable because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Whereas a host, my brain, it's you got to kind of like change your mindset because your brain, the comedy side of your brain is like, I need to get laughs. I'm not getting laughs. And as a host, you're establishing the rules and stuff. So a lot of what you're saying isn't supposed to get laughs, but you still have that part of your brain where you're like, "Oh my gosh." It's very easy, especially when you first start hosting, to be like, "I'm not doing well. Oh my gosh, I got to really quickly get through this to get to a laugh." When it's like that's what it is. Part of it is okay. Be okay not getting a laugh. Just be up there, be in the moment, speak smoothly to present the rules, the credits of somebody, addressing any announcements, whatever. So that is a different thing that I've noticed where your brain is like waiting to get a laugh, but you're saying things that aren't gonna get a laugh. You're like presenting the rules and having people like give it up for so and so and give it up for so and so. But those shows, those shows on Friday were fun. Both of them. The room's usually sold out. It's like 75 people. I don't know. They might not have been sold out, but they were almost sold out, both shows, if not sold out. And honestly, I should have. I didn't film any of my sets, which I've been filming most of my sets, video, video recording, basically all of them. Just trying to get in the habit of doing that. But when I'm hosting, a lot of times I don't. Just because usually it's like it's probably not going to be the best set ever, like the hottest crowd because you're going first. But also like setting up a camera and doing that whole thing is like another piece that adds to the anxiety a little bit. Just as far as like, hey, let me set up a tripod that's like out of the way of people. I'm putting my phone here. Hopefully nobody steals it. Like, oh, is this okay? Asking the person there, like, is it okay being here? Is it in the way? Just having to think about it like, hey, when are we starting? I got to go start my camera. I got to get the audio. It's a bunch of stuff that can add on to the stress. And if you're hosting, you already kind of have a little bit of that like responsibility stress over you. So a lot of times I opt out. I wish I would have done it though. It's really not that hard to set stuff up, but I just opted to not do it. But that second show probably would have been, worthwhile. The crowd was pretty good there, worthwhile recording. But that was Friday night. Had a bunch of fun doing that, meeting Kevin McCaffrey, doing that show. And then Saturday was I did another Don't Tell show, which was for sure the most fun show out of this last week. I mean, again, I hosted all of them. So it was the most fun show, but also host set. It was a hot crowd. It was at, again, just because it's Don't Tell, I won't provide specific details in case that's a breach of contract. But it's at a new studio. It's a newer venue for a videographer in the scene who has like a studio where they do a bunch of work throughout there, and they're running shows there now. And boy, is that a cool space. I mean, first off, the setup of the studio is just great. I think it was like 50 people, and that's the amount that sold out the space, and it was it was packed. So it's like a small, tight room. They've set it up with like a curtain behind and lighting, and just, oh man, everything you want in like when you think about doing comedy, and you start doing comedy and see like what rooms do well, and you're like, oh, I want to do that all the time. This was that, where you go, this is what, because doing a massive room where there's like 300 people, obviously that's great. A lot of those rooms though are big open spaces. This was 50 people stuffed in a space where you probably couldn't get an extra person or two in there. Like, perfect, hot room, tight space, turn the lights off, spotlight on. And it was awesome. I felt good about it. My set, the whole show, all the comedians on the lineup were like legitimately killer comics. almost all of them were like headliners. So to have 6 or 7 people, or like 6 people outside of myself, do 10 minutes and just rip, it was very cool. So that was a very fun time. I checked people in there. So part of like hosting is kind of like checking people in as well. So you're kind of like juggling both of those, which is fine. I do that quite a bit. But when you do that, you get to see people. You're seeing people come in. So you're able to like see people and be like, these look. I see the demographics. These people seem fun. These people seem maybe not. For this show, they were. But I've definitely checked in people where you go on the road, you check people in, they're all 110 years old, and you go, okay. I looked all of these people in the eyeballs before we started the show, and I don't think it's going to be good. But this one was great. And it was funny because the first group that got there, and they got there like 45 minutes early. It's and don't tell shows, they're like BYOB, most of them. Bring your own beer in case you're 100 years old. But the first group, they brought a cooler, like a big cooler, and they were partying. And they got in there, and it was they made it clear pretty quickly it was a bachelorette party. And I mean, they were down in drinks, and they sat front row. And I was like, oh no, is this gonna be? Because also as a host, like, you're responsible for like keeping the show on track, and sometimes crowd members or people are crazy, and I'm, I feel a lot more comfortable and feel competent in being a host, but also there are scenarios once in a blue moon where people are acting a fool, and you have, like, if you want to be the best host you can be and be fully responsible, you have to nip it in the bud, or you have to at least try to. And I'm not a confrontational person, so I'm totally fine with, and I've gotten used to establishing the rules, and doing the basics there. And even if somebody's wild and out, addressing it. But sometimes, a couple times in my comedy career, people have been so drunk or so unruly that, I mean, it's like you ask them to stop, and then it's like, we're gonna fight. And that, it's like, dude, I'm not trying to do comedy to fight people. Okay, trust me. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to fight. I don't want to feel like I'm going to be in a fight. I don't want to be on stage and be like, I'm supposed to be funny right now, but I'm about to cry because I think somebody is going to fight me. So when you see certain people, and it was totally fine, by the way. They were great. Crowd was awesome. But sometimes you see that when you check people in, and your mind goes to that place where you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to be an issue that is just not going to be fun to deal with? And again, as a host, that's part of your job. So sometimes it does stink because you're like, I just want to do comedy. But sometimes you have to have some of these other responsibilities. And I accept that. I understand that. That's fine. But, everybody that hosts and does comedy, they kind of cross their fingers for like, I hope I don't have to do that. But we did that show. It was awesome. I didn't film it, but the videographer who owns the studio, he filmed everybody. And so I'm excited to see how that comes out. I mean, he's very good at what he does. Videography, photography. He filmed in like 6K. He said he's got the studio mic'd up. So I'm excited to see how that comes out. So that should be hopefully a good video I have. That was Saturday. And then Sunday, I got to host at the Improv for the second time ever, which was also a very fun. It was a long week of hosting, and Sundays a lot of times I use as like an off day to kind of catch up on things. But it was good to have a show to be able to do. I went and hosted one show for Chingo Bling. I've never heard of him before, but he's a big, I think, like, rapper and comedian out of Houston, Texas. He was a cool dude. Chingo is not a. I looked it up. I'm pretty sure it's not a nice word in Spanish. There's a verb close to that is not. It's a pretty inappropriate word, but I think it might mean something else. It might be an adjective. I don't know. Don't look it up. Either way, funny comic. His feature, Javi Luna, very funny dude as well. They were the two that were in town for the weekend. And yeah, it was cool to host. I felt good. It was it was a Sunday crowd. It was probably 100 or less people, which is still a great crowd, but in a room that holds like 350, it was, a lighter crowd than some. And then being a Sunday, it felt a little tighter, but honestly, it felt kind of similar to the Thursday show. Like I felt good. I went up there and I stuck with like what my job is, which is like, hey guys, I'm establishing the rules. Clap your hands. Let's get into jokes. I want to feel like I'm in the moment explaining these jokes. I end on some momentum and some laughs and hand it off to the other comics. And I felt like I did that, which felt good. Didn't film it. I didn't want to deal with I brought some stuff, but I was like, you know what? I was chatting to the guys. It's a lot to like meet a headliner and feature and like, okay, let me remember your names, your credits, and then set the camera up. So I didn't set it up. No worries though. It was very fun. It was a very fun week of hosting. Again, the more reps you get, the more you improve, you learn, you can critique yourself. And I feel like doing 5 hosting shows in the last 4 days was exactly that. So excited to have those opportunities. Excited to do more in the future. This week here, what am I doing? I don't know if I have any shows this week. I'll have to double check, but I'm going to be volunteering for the High Plains Comedy Festival this Thursday through Saturday, which should be fun. Some of the best shows of the year here in Denver. It's a very, it's a big community. It's a big deal in the Denver community for the comics, for audiences to watch comics come out of town, and the best local talent. So excited to be a part of that as far as just volunteering and kind of being around the shows and getting to see everybody watch some shows. So excited for that. Got some shows coming up. The Colorado Springs Comedy Festival, end of September in Colorado Springs. Doing a few shows there. Then the week after that, first week of October, I'll be in Kansas City for the Fountain City Comedy Festival. So very excited for those coming up. I feel good. I feel a little tired, like I said, but I feel like the pep's coming back on my step now that my brain's adjusted to the fall coming in. Been eating those hamburgers, brisket. You guys tell me, what's your favorite healthy food? Let me know what it is and let me know why. And then tell me why should I add it to my diet? Pitch me on some healthy food. I wanted to talk more about some other stuff, but it'll just have to wait till next week. This has been fun. I don't know. Did you guys have fun? Was any of this interesting? Let me know in the comments below. With that said, thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate you guys as always, and I'll see you guys again next week.